We began talking about this story out of Ireland, and I tried to point out the very first day. I said, "Relax. I wouldn't hang a dog on what I'm reading here in the newspapers, simply because there was too much speculation." The original story said that they had discovered 800 bodies of babies stuffed in this septic tank, and the only thing I mentioned was that, look, there seems to be concern that we have bodies with no burial records. Now, we had no idea if these were mistreated children. There were some people who immediately assumed that the Bon Secours nuns were responsible for some sort of atrocity. But not at all. First of all, why would you assume that? What you have here is certainly an irregular situation. Religious orders know that Christian burials should be given. So why didn't they give Christian burials here? We still don't know, by the way. But there's much more we do know now, although many of the facts are still murky, and yet you've got people speculating and tremendous amounts of outrage being expressed when people don't even know the facts yet. What we've got... Actually, one of the better pieces on this whole thing is the New York Times story of yesterday. 796 children, mainly babies, died at St. Mary's Mother and Baby Home between 1925 and its closing in 1961. That seems to be indisputable. That seems to be settled. 796 children, mainly babies, died at St. Mary's Mother and Baby Home between 1925 and its closing in 1961. So you're looking there, 56 years. There's a local historian who I quoted last week. Her name's Catherine Corliss. She went ahead and she researched the death certificates. So she's got death certificates. All right? What troubled her is what troubled me. She couldn't find burial records, except for one of the children, and she wanted, out of respect, to put up a plaque to commemorate the lives of the others. Now, Ms. Corliss speculated that these children's bodies were interred in a septic tank behind the home. And then she met a local man who said he had seen bones there while playing as a child. She never said that they had found 800 bodies in the septic tank. She never said that. Ms. Corliss said people are making out... Barry Sweeney was one of the fellows questioned by detectives about what he saw back when he was 10 years old, because Ms. Corliss had interviewed him. And he said, people are making out what we saw was a mass grave. He said, but we can only say what we saw. We saw maybe 15 to 20 small skeletons. Where and how the bodies of the children were actually disposed of is a mystery. Nobody knows. We've got the death certificates, but we don't have all the bodies. And in a small town, there's lots of local lore, which may lead back to exactly what happened. We don't know yet. But there's been a news media juggernaut on this, which is playing to deep suspicions, black legends, and the very first comment I saw on this was from a reader who said, "How could anybody kill those lovely babies?" Well, wait a minute. Nobody said anybody killed these babies. How'd you know they were lovely, by the way? Huh? No. The point is, people say silly things all the time. Nobody had killed these babies. Ms. Corliss never said that these babies were killed. We didn't know. We knew that there's high rates of disease. And the reason we're talking about this is because these nuns, these Bon Secours nuns, cared enough to care for the children in the first place. Why was it the church? Why was it the church that was taking care of these kids? Now, we'll get more information on that, but that would have been my first response, right? It would have been like, well, the reason we know this is because these nuns decided to take care of these babies. So, we don't have the facts right now. We do know that the church is cooperating. The archbishop there has called for an independent investigation. There's nobody's covering up anything. Ms. Corliss, who launched the investigation, the local historian, says she remains confident that the babies are buried in the general area. Okay? And she has good reasons to believe that, because there was an 8-foot-high wall surrounding the home. And most everything would be done, within those walls. So, look, you've got there's a new anti-Catholic sentiment out there, which, there's this movie Philomena that was a trash piece last year, and they're trying to piggyback on that movie to create, again, a greater sense of scandal. But let me remind you, there'd be no story at all if these nuns had decided to say, no, we won't care for them. We won't bother. You had your babies out of wedlock? You take care of them. We got better things to do. We got rosaries to say. No, they didn't say that. They said, we'll do what we can to help. And now we'll find out. Were there administration snafus? Now, here's the newest thing, by the way. The newest speculation is that the children were being used as vaccine guinea pigs. That's the latest outrage. Now, who writes a story like that when, in fact, there's no credible evidence that that's what went on here? There's some speculation about medical experimentation, but it isn't as though this has been nailed down. We'll find out if the speculation plays out. But here's the headline: Irish care home scandal grows as children revealed to be used as vaccine guinea pigs. Yeah. So when you say vaccine guinea pigs, that implies that there was no parental consent, right? That there were no overseeing adults, that these kids were completely brutalized. We don't know that. I would argue at this point there's no reason to even suspect it. What we have is a very irregular and ugly situation. We don't know the morality of it. We know aesthetically it's grotesque. And we know that canonically there's something irregular about this, because we don't seem to have Catholic burials. So we have to be patient. But again, secular press can't be patient because it needs to arrest your attention in order to sell advertising. The reason nobody's sitting on this story until we actually know is because they want to sell papers. That's the point. That's the mission of mainstream media today. It is commercial in what they do. Don't ever forget that the story that's the good story is the story that gets your attention. Don't try to be too much more sophisticated than that, or you'll end up missing the point. So rather than wait to really have something to say about this story, they decided to publish to generate as much outrage as possible. I will say, New York Times did not do that, and they were clearly trying to scale back. And even the Washington Post story, which got out in front of this last week, which is where we first heard about it, they are now spanking themselves for, here. Is it true, here, from the Washington Post today, they're kind of chastising themselves. They asked this question: is it true that the skeletons of nearly 800 babies and children have been discovered in a septic tank in Ireland? No. Contrary to a great deal of reporting, including 2 stories published by the Washington Post, it doesn't appear that there are 800 skeletons in a disused septic tank. So thanks to the Washington Post for at least admitting they got the story wrong at the beginning, and thanks to the New York Times for scaling down the reporting until we can get actual facts.